In the first video, we talked about the scriptures that spoke of Christians as being strangers in this world. That it emphasized the idea that we were a people on a pilgrimage to some other homeland. So in that sense, it said that we didn't have an attachment to the world around us. We were not to be concerned with the things of this world. But then it also spoke of us as being a holy nation, a royal priesthood, a people set apart. And if we deconstruct that very briefly, it's talking about that we as Christians, we don't belong to another nation. We're not English or American or Russian or whichever nationality you happen to be. It talks about us being a royal priesthood, which means that the defining aspect of our culture is we are a people that are dedicated to the service of Yahweh, like priests. And then it speaks of us being a people set apart. A people set apart are people who are different to their surroundings. And so in a sense it creates this identity in the apostolic and prophetic teaching, which is what we're called to build our identity upon, in contrast to what the culture teaches us as the basis of how we think about ourselves and how we think about our way through the world, how we think about our place in the world, and how we think about our interactions with the world. The Christian community, like any nation state or any empire, is a community that is transiting through time. It's moving through time, and has done for 2,000 years, towards time's end point. And from that, Christians have to construct their own ideology, which should supersede any other kind of ideology, that looks at the best interests of our community. And so we're going to do a part 2 to that video now, looking a little more about what it is to be Christian, what it is to have a Christian identity. So we've spoke about being a nation, we spoke about being a royal priesthood. Now it's interesting that it's a royal priesthood, it's not just a priesthood, which shows that as Christians we're meant to have authority in this world. So whilst we are separate from the world and whilst we are in the world, we're not so otherworldly as to not have any interactions with our surroundings, but that when we interact with our surroundings, we do so in the best interests of our own community. And I want to build on that now by looking at more scriptures that talk about what are the identity of Christians. So in Matthew 12, for reading from verse 46 to 50, it reads, "While he was still speaking to the crowds, behold, his mother and brothers were standing outside seeking to speak to him. Someone said to him, 'Behold, your mother and your brothers are standing outside seeking to speak to you.' But Jesus answered the one who was telling him and said, 'Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?' And stretching out his hand towards his disciples, he said, 'Behold my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father who is in heaven, he is my brother and sister and mother.'" So the Christ is creating a connection between obedience to the Father and being within his community. A point that he picks up on again in John 14 to 16, when he talks about the Paraclete, making his dwelling within the community of those who obey his commandments. But he identifies that community that lives in obedience to the Father as being a family. So just dwell on this for a moment with me. Meditate on this imagery for a second. If we are, as Christians, a family, how does that work? If we use a family, a normal functioning family, as our example, you have mothers, you have fathers, brothers, sisters, cousins, first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, aunties, uncles, great aunties, great uncles. And I think that that is a deliberate imagery of the Christ for us to think about how we interact with one another as Christians. As Christians, we are a family. But just as in a normal blood family, not everyone is a close relation. Some people, there is distance between you and, say, a great uncle that you don't see very often. And you have a more intimate relationship with your brothers, your sisters, your mother and your father than, say, your third cousin removed. So it is within the church. We're all one family. We all belong to one another. But we don't have such familial relationships that you have an intimate relationship with everyone within the church. Some people within the church are your cousins. Some people within your church are your third cousin. Some people within the church are uncles, distant uncles, sometimes close. Some people within the church are more like your mother. Some people within the church are more like your father. Some people within the church are more like your brothers and sisters. We as Christians have to cultivate those relationships. And I would say, as a rule, anyone who is older than you, but you don't know very well, should be treated like an uncle or an auntie, with the measure of respect that's accorded to them, but also with the kind of distance and barriers that you would have within a normal family setup. Some people are your brothers and sisters, people your own age. Some people are younger than you. They're more like your sons and daughters, or perhaps your nieces and nephews. This is the way we need to think about our church communities and develop a culture within our communities that reflects that in the way that we speak to one another, in the way that we speak about one another. But it's more than that. It also means that a family sticks together in times of trouble. A family doesn't always get along, doesn't always agree. But there's always that point at which, no matter the disagreement, there is that recognition that we're still one, that we still belong to one another, that we still hold fast to those ties of blood. And in the Christian case, that's the blood of Christ. That you still have that sense of solidarity with one another, so that if one part of your family was struggling or needed help or was suffering, you would come to their help. If they were being attacked, you would come to their defense. Christians need to recognize that we're not denominations, that we're a family, and that all those things about our own identity that strip away those family connections are actually unchristian. And the apostles go further. Guided by the Holy Spirit, the apostles said in Corinthians 12, reading from verse 14, "For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot says, because I am not a hand, I am not part of the body, it is not for this reason any the less a part of the body. And if the ear says, because I am not an eye, I am not a part of the body, it is for this reason any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But now God has placed the members, each one of them, in the body, just as he desired. If they were all one member, where would the body be? But now there are many members, but one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, or again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, it is much truer that the members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary, and those members of the body which we deem less honourable, on these we bestow more abundant honour, and our less presentable members become much more presentable, whereas our more presentable members have no need of it. But God has so composed the body, giving more abundant honor to that member which lacked, so that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. The imagery of the apostles is speaking about the unity of the corporate identity. I am not Bob, the individual Christian. I am part of a wider community, part of a body. You who are listening to this who are Christians, you're not on some individual journey with the Christ. You are part of a body, a unit. Your individuality is stripped away. There is a corporate identity that supersedes your individualism. As Christians, we each have talents and skills, and each of those talents and skills have to be brought forward for the service of the church and for the good of the community. So let me put that in real terms for you. If you're a banker in your secular job, you should be a banker for the church. If you are an accountant in your secular job, then you should be an accountant for the church. If you are a doctor in your secular job, then you should be a doctor for the secular church. If you are a scholar in your secular job, you should be a scholar for the church. If you are a labourer in a secular job, then you should be a labourer for the church. If you are a teacher in your secular job, you are a teacher for the church. If you're a politician, you're a politician for the church. If you're called to be a soldier in your secular job, then you are a soldier for the church. If you are a policeman in your secular job, you're called to be a policeman for the church, a defender of the Christian community. Every skill and every ability, whether it finds an expression in secular work or does not, every skill and ability that you have, you are to place it before the church for the good of the community. And you cannot say that because this part of the body is something that you don't like or something that you're not comfortable with, that it has no part of the body. Actually, whatever your skills and abilities are, even if it is just cleaning, even if it is just doing manual work, it is needed for the church. And that's where you are to bestow it. But it is also this sense that as Christians, we're not separate from one another, that we can ignore one another's needs. When Christians are being persecuted in the Middle East, Christians in the West should feel that as if we are persecuted. Where Christians are being discriminated against in our own countries, we should feel that like we are being discriminated against. Our sense of solidarity and corporate identity is such that there can be no division amongst us. We can't say that this is their problem somewhere over there, or that it has nothing to do with me, or that it isn't my calling. Often the kinds of excuses that Christians use to abdicate their responsibility. As Christians, our responsibility is to the community first, to the church first, because they are our own body. We're not separate to them. It is to the family of God, because they are blood of our blood, covenant of our covenant, people of our people. And so I invite you, brothers and sisters, as I conclude, to take a moment to reflect upon your attitudes towards the church, upon your skills and abilities, and to address the needs of the church with what skills and abilities you have in the service of Christ.